They dragged him out of his car, slapped him with false charges, and thought they had won. But they had no idea who they were dealing with. When the truth came out, the entire system shook. This wasn't just another case. It was about to become a national scandal. Stay with me till the end, because this story will leave you questioning everything. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. We uncover the truths they don't want you to see. Late at night in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the streets were quiet until flashing red and blue lights filled Jamal Winslow's rearview mirror. A seasoned assistant U.S. attorney, he had just left a dinner with colleagues, thinking only about getting home. But when two officers approached his window, he knew something was off. License and registration, Officer Kyle Driscoll demanded. His partner, Brent Kessler, lingered by the passenger door, hand resting on his belt. Jamal complied. May I ask why I was stopped? Driscoll exchanged a glance with Kessler before answering, your tail light's out. That was a lie. Jamal had just passed inspection, and from his mirror, he could see his brake lights reflecting perfectly. Are you sure about that? He asked, keeping his voice even. Driscoll's patience snapped. Step out of the vehicle. Jamal knew his rights. He wasn't legally required to step out without probable cause. I have the right to ask why, but they weren't interested in rights. The moment he hesitated, they yanked the door open, grabbed him, and slammed him against the hood of his own car. You're resisting, Driscoll sneered as they snapped the cuffs on. Resisting. He hadn't done anything wrong, but that didn't matter because they never expected him to fight back. The next day, Jamal sat in court, not as a prosecutor, but as a defendant. The charges, resisting arrest, obstruction, disorderly conduct, lies, stacked on lies. The judge, Margaret Holloway, barely looked at him. The prosecutor, Richard Calloway, smirked with confidence. He had the system on his side. This is a simple case, Calloway said. The defendant escalated a routine stop into an altercation with law enforcement. Jamal's public defender, Thomas Rivera, objected. There is no evidence that my client was aggressive. No body cam footage. Body cams weren't operational, Calloway shot back. Convenient. Then the officers took the stand. The defendant refused to comply, Driscoll said. He created a hostile situation. He tensed up, Kessler added. We feared for our safety. Lies. Every word. And then Jamal stood up. It was time to flip the script. Calloway smirked. Mr. Winslow, did you comply with the officer's instructions? Jamal leaned forward, voice steady. I asked why I was being ordered out of my car. That's not illegal. Calloway feigned frustration. And you refused to exit, correct? I asked for a lawful reason. Calloway turned to the judge. Your Honor, it's clear the defendant, Jamal interrupted, his voice slicing through the courtroom. Before we continue, I have something to disclose. Silence. Calloway hesitated. Even Judge Holloway looked up. Jamal reached into his briefcase. His lawyer tensed, unsure what was happening. Then he pulled out his badge, a small, simple rectangle that changed everything. I'm Jamal Winslow, he said, holding it up, Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District. The room froze. The judge's gavel hovered, but she didn't slam it down. The officers stiffened. Calloway went pale. For the first time, they realized they hadn't just arrested another nameless victim. They had arrested a federal prosecutor. That moment changed everything. The courtroom was no longer just a courtroom. It was a bomb waiting to go off. Judge Holloway turned to the officers. Would you like to amend your statements? Silence. Then Jamal delivered the final blow. I request that the court pull the dispatch call logs from my arrest. Calloway flinched. If those logs showed no report of a broken tail light, their lie would collapse. If they showed no call before the stop, protocol was violated from the start. The judge had no choice. Request granted. Driscoll exhaled sharply. Kessler's jaw tightened. They knew what was coming, and it didn't stop there. The story hit the news fast. Federal prosecutor wrongfully arrested. Baton Rouge cops exposed in court. Judge under fire for bias. Social media exploded. Protesters gathered. Civil rights attorneys started digging into old cases. And then the biggest blow landed, an anonymous leak. Internal police emails showed officers justifying false stops. Black drivers targeted, threatened, railroaded into charges, just like Jamal. The case was no longer about him. It was about everyone who had been trapped in the system without a badge to protect them. By the time Jamal returned to court, the judge was no longer dismissive. She was cornered. She cleared her throat, the weight of the scandal pressing down on her. The court finds the defendant. She hesitated just for a second. Then finally, not guilty. Relief filled the room. But Jamal didn't celebrate because this wasn't a victory.